Hi guys, Ruben here, back again with another SUPboarder review, except this week we're not going to be looking at boards, we're going to look at some iSUP pumps from the SUP pump brand of Bravo. Bravo, the SUP brand, is actually made from a company called SUPboarder, which is based in Italy, been making camping and marine technology for many years. I think they started back in 1964, so they've got a lot of experience in the outdoor industry. They were the guys who invented the Easy Pump, the first real iSUP pump that was pumping up iSUPs around the world back in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, and they definitely have brought out a new range to complement that pump and take it into the future. So in this review we're going to look at these 3 hand pumps, and then later on in a few other video reviews a few weeks down the line we're going to be looking at some of their electric pumps too. So right here in front of me we have the 3 pumps. I'll try and get my numbers correct. We have the Bravo 100, we have the Bravo 101, and we have the Bravo 110. So really, from an inflatable SUP point of view, we're going to be looking at the 101 and the 100 pump. The 110 is a bigger diameter pump that can get more air in, but it's really designed for the all-round use and kite surfing market. And now with all these pumps and other new pumps that we've tested, we stuck them onto a 200 litre board that needed 15 psi of pressure. The tester was a 5'10" male. He had a heart rate monitor on him, so we measured a heart rate at his standing rate before we started pumping, and then we measured it at the peak heart rate, and we also timed the amount of time it would take to get the board, or get the pumps to pump the board up to 15 psi. These pumps will be available and come with many board packages in the 2018 ranges for sure, and you can also buy them around the world at various sort of websites. They retail at about $70 US or about £50, but to be honest, if you do shop around you can find them cheaper than that. So let's move on and talk about these pumps then. Right, the first thing to notice is obviously they are very similar. The handles, the fittings, the base plates, the look of the pumps and the actual hoses themselves are very similar. So we can come across, when we talk about features of one of the pumps, we're generally talking about all of the pumps. The biggest difference in these pumps right now is the 2 silver ones pump up to 27.5 psi, and the red one has a pumping pressure of just under 15 psi. So straight away you can see the difference, that these are your more SUP pumps and this one is more of your kite, inflatable raft, inflatable lilo sort of base pump. We did pump this up in the test at the same time because we wanted to pump the 15 psi, but the results were very different compared to these two, but we'll go on to those in a minute. Compared to other pumps on the market, these are way lighter, and definitely for the traveling iSUP user out there, these pumps would tick that weight reduction box. The standard features you're going to find on all the pumps these days, which is still really good, but they're unfortunately like standard features. Obviously the base plates have got sort of more of a footrest positioning, they're canted back so you can get your feet on them easier. The hoses are very similar, the attachments are the same because you need them to go in your iSUP, and the threaded section for the hose is still the same as the older current Bravo pumps on the market. And the pressure gauge themselves is still the same as the other one. But the pressure gauge is built into these pumps, so it's a much more tidy system and looks a lot more solid. And the big bonus to these new Bravo pumps is the hose is attached to the main part of the pump. So when you're pumping up and down, the hose doesn't go up and down, the hose stays on the main part of the pump, which is a massive bonus when it comes to pumping. And if you pump a lot of iSUPs up, you'll realize that the hose flapping around, banging you in the legs, maybe by the movement of the banging up and down, it does come undone and comes off your board and lets the air out your board. Having it on the main part of the chamber of the pump makes a huge difference and makes it way easier to pump, and it's a really good move from Bravo. And I think at the moment they're the only company, these pumps, that have that on the main chamber. The pump themselves do look incredibly solid and just really well thought out. So the aluminium tube here, which takes the air back up to the chamber, really nicely finished. A solid feeling pump. I think you could drop it, you could probably treat it quite hard and it would definitely last you a long time. A nice big comfortable handle at the top, easy to get 2 hands on, really comfy. The switching system is very simple, there's nothing to lose, it's just got an up and down switch system, so that's single action, double action. And the big thing when it is on double action, so double action, remember, is when you're pulling up, the air's going in, and when you're pushing down, the air's going in. There is no resistance on the upstroke apart from the air you're pulling in. What I mean by that is sometimes the pumps in this position, particularly when they're not plugged into the board, for you to pull them up, there's quite a lot of resistance on the tubing here, and that does take in the fatigue and it wears you out. So by having no resistance, again, it's just going to make the pumping easier. Another top move, we really like that. Lots of other pumps we've tested, we feel the resistance and it's not a good thing, especially after 2.5 minutes of pumping a board up. So looking at the size of the pump, obviously you can see the red pump is a fatter chamber pump designed to get a lot of air in quickly but not go to such higher pressure. The bigger the chamber, the faster it's going to inflate, but then when you go to push down on the final PSI pressures, so let's say maybe 10 PSI to 20 PSI like you'd be pumping your iSUP in, the bigger chamber then causes you a lot of resistance, which is why most iSUP pumps opt for the smaller, narrower chamber, and which is also why your bike pumps or your stirrup pumps, I think they're called, are really narrow because you can get a high PSI pressure in there. The only other thing to note with this pump is there is a inflate deflate valve position you can put on this. You put the hose up on the top there by the handle, you can suck the air out of whatever you want to suck the air out of, your lilo, your kite, anything like that, to really compact it down. These are only inflation pumps. This one is an inflation and deflation pump. So the two silver pumps, the 101 and the 100, are the same cylinder diameter as each other, and they're also very similar cylinder diameters, get my words out, as other pumps on the market too. The big thing, as you can see, obviously the 101 is shorter. Now this is a big thing because no other pumps in the market have a shorter height pump available to use. Now in our testing, this is where things got very interesting. Generally, this pump is going to pump your board up quicker, isn't it? Because there's more air in it, it's going to get a larger amount of air quicker. And even this one here, it's a bigger volume of air compared to these two together. So that should be pumping the board up quicker. But remember, speed isn't always what you're after. Sometimes it's how hard things take to pump up, how much fatigue you get while you're pumping up. I mean, you don't want to be completely exhausted before you even go paddleboarding, do you? So, interesting, this is where the facts and figures will come in. I've got to write it down because too many figures and I'll get them all wrong and then the whole thing's flawed, isn't it? So we made sure that our pumper had a resting heart rate of 75 beats per minute before we started pumping any board up, and all the boards were deflated to the same amount. This pump took 2 minutes and 2 seconds to pump the board up and a max heart rate of 138 beats per minute. So moving on to the 100, this pumped the board up in 1 minute 55 seconds, so it's 7 seconds quicker than the bigger one, but the heart rate was more. It was 149 beats per minute at the max heart rate. So generally a bit more fatigue was set in but it did pump the board up more efficient and faster. But remember, this can go up to 27.5 psi. That was at the max of 15 psi, all right? Now this is where it gets really interesting. The 101. Okay, smaller pump, not so high, hasn't got as much volume. This pumped the board up in 1 minute and 51 seconds, quicker than these two, and the heart rate was 150 beats per minute at the max pressure. This is where, if you realise, the tester was 5'10". Now this is where everything interesting starts to happen, because the tester's 5'10". He hasn't got so much reach to get the pump right at the top and push down as a taller pumper would have. So this smaller pump, 101, was faster for him and pretty much the same efficiency and heart rate to pump a 200 litre board up to 15 psi than this Bravo 100. This is where the interesting thing comes in. So if you are 5'10", 5'11" and down, go for the smaller 101. It's going to be easier, the same amount of heart rate, and it's going to get you there quicker, because you're not going to waste your energy taking your pump really high to not be able to get the pressure into the pump. Because as you know, when you start pumping up and it starts to get hard and the fatigue starts setting, you can't bring the pump up as high up your chin and push, because the pump starts to resistance. So you can come lower and get more air down, but by being at lower in chamber, you can still put more air in than the bigger one. If you're a bigger person, I really think it's going to be the sort of 6 foot and plus, this sort of pump, you're going to get more air in. We didn't test it with a bigger pump, but it would have been good too, but I think logic says if you're a bigger paddler, taller paddler, the 100 will suit you much better. And remember to bear in mind, just because the 110 had a lower max heart rate compared to the other two pumps, the muscle fatigue really set in towards the end of the pumping because of the bigger cylinder. So there you have it, 3 new pumps from Bravo, all with very different uses and very different sizes. Definitely if you're the shorter paddler, I mean I'm 5'11", I'm going to be going for that 101 every single time now, and if I was traveling I'd happily take this pump. Super lightweight, hard wearing, and made from a very good reputable brand. Definitely if you're taller, look towards the 100. Again, a nice lightweight pump that's going to be happy to go traveling. The 110 you're better off leaving to the kite surfers. A great pump again, but I personally don't like using a pump to its limits. I like using the pump to its comfortable standards in the mid-range, which is these 2 here. Hope you found that review interesting and informative. We definitely did. We really learned some things about body heights and what sort of pump will suit us best. If you want any more information, check out these guys' website. Until next time, we'll see you with another SUPboarder review.